Hey, thank you for watching this week. This month, I'm talking about your gifts and talents that God has given you. And you might say, what gifts? What talents? Or maybe you already know what your gifts and talents are, but you're not really using them. You're not tapping into them, or you haven't stirred up the gift of God that's in you, like Timothy said. Well, I want you to know that God has given you specific gifts for a reason. He wants you to do what He put you on this earth to do. You have to discover those gifts and then develop them. And the Bible says that not only will your gifts make room for you, but they'll bring you before great men, great women. Your gifts should cause you to be blessed, to be prosperous. So we're talking about your gifts, and I can't help but think about Matthew 25. And you may have read this story before. If not, maybe you should read it for yourself. But I'm going to summarize it real quick from the Message translation. In Matthew 25, we see that story that Jesus, He would always compare things and give little parables. And He starts telling the story about when a master gave 3 of his servants some talents. And what He said was, before the master left, He brought his servants together and He gave them talents. To the first, He gave 5 talents. To the second, He gave 2 talents. And to the third, He gave 1 talent according to their abilities, the word says. Then He left. It says, as soon as the master left, the servants that had more than 1 talent immediately put the money to work and doubled their profits. The servant that was only given 1 talent, he immediately dug a hole and buried his talent for safekeeping. It's very important, that part. It says, when the master returned sometime later to see how the servants did, the first servant, he strolled up proudly and he said, hey, master, my 5 talents have made you another 5. And the master said, excellent work. You have been faithful in little, now I'm going to make you ruler over much. I'm going to give you more. To the second servant, he walked up proudly to the master and he said, hey, my 2 talents have made you 2 more. Excellent work, said the master. You have been faithful in some small things, and now I'm going to put you in charge of larger things. But then to the third, he turned to the servant who was given 1 talent, and he said, how about you? What have you done for me? Listen to the reply here. But the third servant was afraid. He said, look, master, I know that you're a strict master, and I didn't want to risk losing the money you gave me, so I buried it. Here it is, just the way it was when you gave it to me. Here it is, just as you left it. The Message translation says it like this, which I think is kind of funny. It says, fool, yelled the master as he smacked him on the back of his head. He said, you have done nothing with it. You are a lazy and foolish servant. Give that 1 talent to the first servant. You're not even worthy to keep it. Now get to work. The fields need to be plowed. Now think about that. Why do you think the master was so angry? Why? Because he wasted his talent. He wasted what he had been entrusted with. The others doubled it, produced a profit, and then they got blessed with even more. The one who was given 1 was so afraid that he just buried it. He did nothing with it. Well, Jesus was giving that illustration as a word to us to say, God has given you gifts and talents that He is expecting you to develop. You don't want to stand before God and say, Lord, I'm sure you gave me something, but I don't know what it was. Or maybe you stand before the Lord and say, I had this gift to sing. I knew I could sing because people would tell me, you have such a beautiful voice. But I was afraid, so I just hid my talent. Or maybe you have a gift of writing. Maybe you have a gift of decorating. Maybe you have a gift of taking care of children, but you never developed it. You never took it that extra mile. You never put some work into it, did some homework to find out, what can I do to develop this gift and cause my gift to bring me before great men, or cause my gift to bring blessings and wealth into my life? Why? Because you were afraid. There's so many reasons why we don't stir up the gift of God within us. One of the biggest ones, I believe, is fear. Just being afraid, being insecure, timidity, whatever it is. In fact, in Timothy, when Timothy was instructed to stir up the gift of God within him, he was also instructed, to not have a spirit of fear or timidity, but of power and love and self-discipline and a sound mind. But I want you to think about that. What are the gifts and the talents that God has put on the inside of you, but you haven't developed them? What is it that you know in your heart you're supposed to be doing, but you've been too afraid to just step out and do it, to overcome that fear and just do it? I heard John Bevere say this, And it has stuck with me, and I minister this in so many messages because it is so real to me. He said, when Judgment Day comes, and it's going to come, when every single one of us are going to stand before God and we're going to give an account for our lives by ourselves. We're not going to be able to have our best friend or our parents with us to back us up and defend us. It's going to be you and God giving an account for your life. And he said, when that day comes and you stand before God, he said he's not going to hold you accountable for what you did here on earth. And I thought, but that's what I thought he was going to do. He said, no, he's going to hold you accountable for what you were called to do here on earth. What are you called to do that God's going to say, I called you to be a singer. What'd you do with it? What'd you do with the talent I gave you? Are you going to be like this foolish servant who said, Lord, I was afraid, and so I just hid it. I buried it. I hid it on the inside of me. No, I'm believing you're going to be able to say, maybe you say, Lord, it took me a while to figure it out, but finally I figured out my gifts, and I developed them, and I did what you called me to do. I want you to discover those gifts that God's given you. Don't waste them. I heard Rick Warren say that, when we all go to heaven, that God may ask us 2 questions. Number 1, what'd you do with my son Jesus? Number 2, what'd you do with the gifts and the talents I gave you? That's pretty serious. So God considers these gifts he's given you as very serious to the reason he even created you and the reason you happen to be alive right now on planet Earth. There's a reason you're here. You're not here to just waste time, take up space, watch a bunch of TV, go to work, and die. God has given you a purpose and a gift. I was just thinking about it. If you were to see a painting, now this is a massive painting that's in my office. Found this little miniature one on my desk. But if you were to, see a beautiful painting and you wanted to know more about it, who would you ask? Would you ask the person who bought the painting? Would you ask the person who framed it or mounted it? Who would you ask? No, you would ask the artist, wouldn't you? You would ask the one who created. What was your inspiration? What was your purpose in creating this painting? Why'd you do this? Why? Well, God is the creator. He's the one who created you. He's the one who created you for a purpose. He's the one you need to be asking. It's not all about just asking your friends, what do you think my gifts are? You can start to get some insight just by asking people, what do you think I'm good at? What do people always say you're good at? But the person you need to seek is God. And you just need to ask him, Lord, what are the gifts that you've given me? What are those things that you've called me to do? I believe you're going to hear from God because he wants to talk to you even more than you want to listen. He just needs you to listen. And people always say, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. You need to listen more than you're talking. Well, practice that though. You can hear that and it's funny, but really practice that. Just spend some quiet time with God and say, Lord, I want to do what you put me on this earth to do. But I don't have a clue what you want me to do. I don't know what my gifts are. Another thing, I want you to get this new series, if you haven't heard it, on your gift. Because in addition to number 1, seeking God, that's priority. There are ways that you can practically begin to discover those gifts. Some of your gifts are things that come so natural to you that you don't even think it's a talent. You may have a gift of decorating that you thought was no big deal and you think anybody can decorate a room. Come look at my house. I try to decorate. I can't. I have to have friends help me. That's a gift God's given you. God has given you a gift, and he wants you to stir up that gift that's on the inside of you so you can stand before him and say, Lord, I did exactly what you called me to do. So thank you for watching me, and next week we'll continue this message on your gift.